Oh, wow. What a difficult question. Um, I don't know whether there was a I don't know whether there was a single thing we could point to. I mean, it seemed like there were all kinds of different things, all kinds of economic and social trends that were converging. Um, people gradually getting more and more indebted, um, banks behaving more and more um, in more and more sort of risky ways, um, our economy getting more and more dependent on our trade deficit getting larger and larger. I mean, there's all kinds of things that sort of all come together in an unfortunate moment in 2006, 2007 to bring it together. But it's like anytime you're dealing with an economic catastrophe of that consequence, you can't point to a single moment. I think you have to take a step back and look at everything. Well, I guess what's interesting about Ford is how long the company has persisted. Um, we're used to capitalism being this incredibly turbulent system. Companies come and go all the time. Ford's been a dominant automaker for essentially the last century, which is an extraordinary accomplishment. And the other interesting thing is it's a reminder about how resilient organizations can be. Um, I'm sure people at Ford would be the first to admit, the first to list all of the mistakes this company has made over the last 50 years. It's a long list, right? But that's actually a kind of a badge of honor because it says that this is a company that can make mistakes, learn from them, be resilient, bounce back. And that's the test of greatness because no one's ever going to be perfect. The issue is, can you go through an unbelievably difficult stretch, as the last couple of years have been, and come out smiling? And the answer is this company did. And that's what I would, if I was someone else, that's what I'd want to learn from, is how well this organization has dealt with adversity over the years. No, I'm pretty optimistic about this. First of all, I'm not convinced um, that lean manufacturing or lean corporations are less innovative. I actually think that innovation very often is as likely or more likely to come from constraints than it is to come from excess, from generous resources. And I also am profoundly optimistic about the ability of organizations, companies of all kinds, to leverage some of these new social technologies for innovation. I mean, if you could identify a way to productively interact with your customers or your fans or your whatever, and mine their insights, people are going to do it. And I don't think there's anything's going to stand in the way of the kind of exploitation of. It's a gold mine potentially. Right? I think that there is, and particularly as the kind of competitive pressures facing global businesses grow, companies are going to have no choice but to do that. So it's going to happen. I have no kind of the days when you could stick your head in the sand and say everything we know we're going to develop in our backyard are over, and everyone knows that. Well, I mean, I think there are cycles. Um, in all of these things, we go through cycles where there is a kind of race to the bottom, where manufacturers have a lot of power over retailers, where it's harder for smaller kind of niche players to make a living. But then we go through cycles where everything is reversed. And I think there is a kind of, I think we ought to think of these trends as they're not permanent trends. They're simply moments when one side has the upper hand, and then what happens is the other side learns and adapts. Smaller quality niche players will absolutely come back when they figure out a better value proposition, right? And that's what they're doing right now. As they are suffering right now, they're also thinking, and they're saying, maybe we have been failing because we haven't legitimately made a difference between what we're offering and what everyone else is offering. And when they figure out what that difference is, they'll return. Um, you saw this, I'm a writer of books. You saw this with bookstores. Independent bookstores got clobbered by the chains, and everyone said they're going to die. Um, they couldn't compete. All the same thing people always say. And then what happened? Well, now the chains are dying out, and a lot of the independents are coming back, right? Borders is the one that's in bankruptcy. Barnes & Noble is struggling, and yet there are all of these small bookstores that I see flourishing in all kinds of urban areas. Why? Because they figured out what a better way to appeal to customers, to book lovers. So that's my answer is wait. The trend will always reverse as people learn from the particular adverse situation they're in. Well, the interesting thing about social media, of course, is if you look over the digital space in the last 5 years, it's littered with the carcasses of people, of companies that we were excited about and that didn't make it. Rupert Murdoch paid billions of dollars for MySpace a couple of years ago because everyone was convinced that was the next big thing, and it wasn't. Before Google, there was Alta Vista and Lycos and all these other search engines that didn't make it. AOL was so big it bought Time Warner, and now AOL probably won't be around in 6 months. So the rules in the digital space are very different from the rules in the older parts of the economy. It's just so turbulent. Everything's up in the air. And consumers are still working out what they want from the digital world. We don't really know what we want from Facebook yet. I think Facebook they'd be the first to tell you, they are a rapidly evolving platform. Whether they'll exist or if they exist, in what form they'll exist, they have no idea. And the other thing is that people don't have affection and loyalty to digital brands the way they do for old line brands. If I had a Focus RS right now, I would love it, right? I'd drive it every day. I would gaze at it longingly in the garage. I don't feel the same way about my Gmail account. It's a commodity service. If someone comes along with a better email service, I'll switch tomorrow. I'll just send a mass email to my friends saying I have a new email account. Right? It's not that hard. So in a world that doesn't generate that same kind of emotional connection to a brand, you're going to have a whole lot of turmoil.